Hey guys, I'm Marta at MZKagan, both on Twitter and on Periscope. And I'm going to be talking today about how to be insanely great in front of any audience, whether you're presenting or you're negotiating perhaps a raise or, geez, even negotiating something with a loved one. Although primarily I'm going to be talking about how to be insanely great in front of an audience when you're, actually presenting something, because that's sort of my area of expertise. Again, I'm at MZKagan. I am the author of the wildly popular What the Fuck is Social Media? Sorry for dropping an F-bomb in the first few seconds, that's just how I roll. Which is just one of many presentations that I've created that have been very popular on SlideShare, over 10 million views, and collectively have contributed to over $100 million in venture funding. So somehow, even though it's not what I intended, I managed to sort of figure out this formula for what makes a really great presentation. Hey, say hey to me when you guys log on. Hello, end of life. Kind of grim. Maybe not, maybe that's a joke. Yeah, say hey, just use the hashtag ACE if you want me to give you a shout out. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about how to be insanely great in front of any audience. And for those of you who are joining me for the first time, you might have missed my little shout out where I said, send me your questions. So you guys can type in your questions while you are watching. I have a few folks that sent me questions in advance. In the future, because I'm gonna be doing these almost daily, you can email your questions in advance to acethepitch at martafy.com, martfy.com. That's my website. And Ace the Pitch, by the way, is an online academy that I founded, which teaches people how to craft and deliver insanely great presentations. So my first question that I got was, how do I project greater confidence and command, right? How do I convey that I'm not absolutely scared shitless when I'm standing on stage, which, most of us have that feeling. I mean, there's this annual survey of the greatest fears humans have, and public speaking is sandwiched right between death, which is number 1, and flying, which is number 3. So number 2. So we share this. You are not alone if you get butterflies in your stomach before you have to stand up in front of people and talk, or broadcast on Periscope or give a webinar or whatever. It is a universal thing. But how do you get over that? How do you not belie the fact that you're a tad nervous? So there's a bunch of tools. I'm going to talk about the 3 tools really we have to work with, which are our body language, our body language, our actual language, and our voice. Our body language, our actual language, and our voice. Those are the 3 things that the 3 levers you can pull to project greater confidence and command when you're speaking to someone. And again, this applies whether you're presenting in front of a large group or you're just having a conversation with someone that you're trying to negotiate or persuade somehow. So we talk about body language. It goes without saying that, looking the part, grooming, dressing appropriately, that I'm not even going to go over that because I just assume you guys are smart enough to know, right? But body language is much more than just what you're wearing, right? Or what your hair looks like, or whether you have makeup on. It's about the subtle cues that you give to people. For example, if I were talking to you like this, if I were looking away a lot, right? Eye contact is an important part. The size and sort of shape of your body is a big difference, right? Like when I am bigger, I immediately project a bit more confidence than when I'm doing this, when I'm fidgeting. Now, granted, my hair keeps going in my face, so that's not a fidget, folks. That is, I probably should have clipped it back. So body language is a big part of it. The way you stand, taking up space, the way that you look at the person you're speaking to or the people you're speaking to, the way you use your hands, right? This does not convey confidence. This does not convey confidence. Smiling, having some energy. I know fake it till you make it is like a super cliche and everyone's sort of sick of it, but yeah, I mean, sometimes that is honestly the truth because that body language conveys it. I worked with the CEO. Hey, new people joining. I'm Marta, by the way. We're talking about how to be insanely great in front of any audience, and specifically right now I'm covering a question someone asked about how to project greater confidence and command in front of other people. So I was working with the CEO recently and preparing him for a large company meeting with shareholders and, all 1,000+ employees. And he had a great talk prepared, a great presentation, but his delivery was like, you know, it was something like this. You could tell he looked nervous. His body language conveyed anxiety. And so just the little tweaks in terms of how he's standing, what he's doing with his hands, when he's using his hands to make a point, you know, facial language is part of body language, smiling, making eye contact, right? Allowing yourself to be a little bit animated. And I don't mean you have to turn into a clown. It's not a performance necessarily, but certainly conveying a greater sense of confidence, even if inside you still got the butterflies going. One great way to practice this, by the way, is actually to do it in front of the mirror. So practice yourself giving it, not just what you're saying. I'm going to assume you've rehearsed what you're saying beforehand, but how you say it, right? What is the body language? What is your posture? When I work with clients, we videotape them doing this. And then sometimes they see it, they're like, oh my God. All right, cool. Guys, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. I will answer live questions as we go. I've got a few here that people sent in advance. So back to confidence and command. I'm going to keep going on that until you guys ask other things. So that was body language. Body language is a big piece of it. Your actual language. Okay. The obvious stuff I'm not going to spend time on, right? The ums, the ahs, clearing your throat, using just filler words, right? Y'all know you shouldn't be doing that. But there's also something about wishy-washy language, about not speaking with conviction. Women in particular are guilty of this. We tend to soften things somehow. We say things like kind of, sort of, a little, a bit, right? Wishy-washy language belies the truth. It lets people know that you're not really full of conviction. This was another thing that happened with that CEO I was mentioning, where the words were a little bit wishy-washy. For example, when you're saying, very tired, I am very tired, I am exhausted, right? That is with conviction. Very tired, sort of tired, kind of tired, a little tired, you get what I'm saying. Okay, so using language that has conviction. And so this actually even feeds into how you prepare your key points, which we're not going to get. So the third part is your voice, right? 3 levers you can pull. There is your pitch, there is your volume, right? And there's actually your sort of points of emphasis. So speaking with conviction also means projecting loudly enough, not speaking like this, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm not sure. You gotta be loud enough, right? And you have to choose when you pause for emphasis, right? And when you go really fast, and when you want to make a point, when you want to raise the tone of your voice, and when you want to lower it, right? These are things, if you have any background in performance, you're like, yes, of course, duh. But for most of us that don't have a background in performance, this is something you can actually practice and think about. And this is why rehearsing is so important if you're really giving a presentation that is important, that's high stakes. Okay, so again, modulating your volume, the pitch of your voice, and when you actually pause or emphasize. All right, cool? You guys feel more confident already, right? Yeah? Okay, so those of you who just joined, I'm Marta, I'm at MZ Kagan, and we're talking about how to be insanely great in front of any audience. Another question that came up from folks before we started was, how do I actually overcome the pre-speech jitters, right? Like the wobbly voice, and this guy, you guys know this? Or I've seen it with professional speakers actually speaking at large keynotes. And I'll tell you a story that I think is a good answer to that question. So I went to this conference last year, and this stunning woman was presenting. She's like 6 foot tall. She's a fitness model. You know, everyone's eyes are glued to her because she's just gorgeous. And we're hanging on her every word. Well, she comes out on stage. There's great music in the background. She looks amazing. And she starts speaking, and you can hear that little voice tremble. And she's doing a little bit of this like tensed high pitch. You can tell she's sweating it. Well, she fessed up to it. She took a sip of water and she said, I'm so-and-so. I am terrified. I am seriously really nervous right now, and I'm going to push through it because I came here to give you guys something, and I'm not going to walk away till I do, something along those lines. So sometimes just, admitting the fact that you feel that way is unbelievably disarming, right? Your audience is like, oh my God, I so know, right? Because public speaking is right between death and flying in terms of our greatest fears as humans year after year. So that's one way to do it. Another technique is actually yogic breathing. If you're not familiar with yogic breathing, Google it. It's out there, but it's basically taking a few moments before you go out on stage or before you walk into the boardroom or conference room or whatever, to slow down and consciously breathe, right? I mean, we breathe all the time. You don't have to think about it. It happens even when you're unconscious. But the difference between conscious breath and just the normal breathing we do to exist is very different and can have a dramatic calming effect. There's a lot of folks in psychology and psychiatry that actually use biofeedback as a mechanism to get over everything from addiction to panic attacks, right? And it's just breathing. It's just learning how to breathe and literally slow down the sympathetic nervous system, which is all fired up, right? It's doing the fight or flight, even though you're not going to do either. You're just going to talk to some people, right? So yogic breathing is a really, really, really great little tool I keep in my toolkit, and I did it before this. There's another one that, let's see, I don't know who's on this, so I don't know how kosher I need to be, but honestly, sex before, an orgasm. Let me rephrase that. An orgasm shortly before you have to present or speak is a fantastic stress release. And you don't even need a partner, it turns out. Most of you probably know this. So, that's another thing that you can do in addition to yogic breathing to get over that jittery thing. It really will calm your voice. It really will slow things down, and it will send some really calming neurotransmitters flooding through your bloodstream. So, all right, so have some sex and do some breathing. That's my advice. What to do with your hands is another question that comes related to this. And by the way, guys, I see people coming in and out. We were talking about how to be insanely great in front of any audience. We started talking about how to project greater confidence and command. And now we're getting into how to get over, the pre-speech jitters and shaky hand voice syndrome. But if you have a question, you can type it in the chat box or just give me a shout out. I love hearts and hellos. So what to do with our hands, right? That's another one. The default I've seen is people, either clenching somehow and kind of becoming this frozen vessel of tension, which of course gives away the fact that you're not feeling confident, and then your audience doesn't feel confident in you. If your audience doesn't feel confident in you, they're not going to pay attention to you. They're not going to be persuaded. It's just the whole house of cards falls apart. So I really suggest that you use your hands, because figuring out what to do with them and to shove them someplace actually adds to the anxiety. And I don't want you thinking about what you're doing with your hands when you're speaking to an audience, when you're trying to persuade them. I want you focused on persuading them, right? On telling the best possible story, on keeping them on the edge of their seats, right? With your story. So use your hands to help that. Use your hands to provide a little bit of visual emphasis for an important point. Provide just a sense of energy. I see presidents of the United States coming up with their signature thing for emphasis, and that's fine. Not all of us are hand talkers. I happen to be one. Can you tell? Now I'm voguing. But I actually, when I work with clients, I coach them on how and when to use their hands, and it starts to become sort of a natural way, a natural extension of the body language and the whole speech. Cool. Does that make sense? Do you guys give me some hearts if is this helpful stuff? Should I keep going? More confidence, more, yeah? Okay, cool. All right, another question, and I get this one all the time. What is the best way to start? How do I start my presentation? That, my friend, is probably the most important question in terms of the actual content of whatever you're presenting, because it's the first 10 to 20 seconds or so that you have the most attention you're gonna have from your audience. Literally, that after that it just sort of wanes. And even the most riveting, passionate, emotional, amazing speech, after about 18 minutes, there's just a crash. It's like, I think we reach brain capacity or something. In fact, you might notice that most of Obama's speeches end at 18 minutes, and a lot of other public speakers or smart TED Talks, 17 minutes. There's a reason, there's a science to this, guys. It's not coincidence. But anyway, it's the first 10 to 20 seconds that you have the most attention. So your start is so important. And here's what I see. This is the like universal mistake that happens in conference rooms and boardrooms across the planet. It's what I call ass syndrome. It's the, ass is not, you know, it is, but it's an acronym for the agenda summary start. You know what I'm talking about? Have you done this? And listen, everyone, this is like a myth everyone talks about. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them, right? Raise your hand if you've heard that. Give me a little heart or a high five or say something. Damn it. Right? Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Who thought of that? That's what I call ass, right? That is the agenda summary start. How much would you rather just get into it? I mean, think of the last movie you went to. Imagine you sat down to watch this movie you're psyched to see, and the director came on and said, I'm going to show you a movie about interplanetary strife and a war. And then we show you the movie, and at the end he sums it up like, what? No, you just want to get into the action, right? The same is true for a presentation or a speech. You don't need to go through that. In most cases, they know what you're going to talk about because you've either sent them an agenda, or they read the description in the, you know, conference brochure, or they saw it on your website or whatever, right? They booked the meeting with you. They have a clue what you're going to be talking about. So just tell them what you're going to tell them. Just do the middle part at the beginning, okay? One of the tips I give many of my clients and students in my course, Ace the Pitch, is whatever you think your beginning is, cut off the first 2 sentences. In some cases, it's 2 paragraphs, true. Cut off the first 2 sentences and then start. Try it, I promise you, it will be better and you will get right into it. So the cold start, like get right into it. Cold start, Saturday Night Live actually does that, right? They just like get in and they get right into a skit. They don't do the introductions. They don't say thank you for being here, blah, 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 blah. So that's a really big one. Don't start with the ask start, the agenda summary start. Get right into it. Another great way to start is just to start with a compelling story. Like just get into the story. Weave the story back to what your core point is, right? Bring it into the context of whatever you're trying to persuade your audience to do, buy, believe, vote for, whatever, endorse. But just get right into the story. Now, some of you, how many of you there are thinking, wait a second, do I need to like introduce myself and shouldn't I say thank you for being here and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you guys, are you thinking about that? Because I know you are. And the thing is, again, if people don't know who you are, if they haven't read about you, met you, looked you, like, why are they there? Then they walked in randomly, and you know what? If you're telling a good story and if your presentation or speech is awesome, they'll look you up after, right? But if you're not, they're just going to walk out, and it doesn't matter because all they'll have heard is your, you know, your little bio or your who you work for, how many years you've been with the company or whatever. Boring. Okay, so skip that stuff. Saying thank you. Saying thank you is nice. Keep it real short. Keep it real short. Thanks for being here. You know, get to it. People don't need to be thanked 1,000 times. Here's another one not to do. I'm so excited to be here. Which usually, by the way, is said like this. I'm so excited to be here with very little excitement. Okay, don't do that. So don't start with excited. Don't start with the agenda summary start. Don't start with a million thank yous. Don't start with, you know, who I am and blah, blah, blah. Start right with the story. Story is the best way to get your audience sitting on the edge of their seats. Think about, again, TV shows, movies. You start right in. There's no intro explanation. You're just either captured or you're not as the story unfolds. A really controversial, I say that with a little grain of salt, a controversial statement, a provocative statement, a question. Those are all other ways that you can get started, but immediately, you know, get into the story from there. Okay? All right. I'm going to do one more question. Again, you guys, if you have a question, go ahead and type in the chat box, but I will do one more question before we wrap for today. Oh, and before you go, if you want more, I'm going to be doing these all week. You can follow me on Twitter at MZKagan, and you'll see all the periscoping stuff and other places where we can connect online. Okay, the last one I'm going to answer is, how do I tell my employees about all the problems my business is dealing with without killing their motivation or drive to overcome them? This one's a little tricky, actually. I didn't realize it was that complicated. Then again, it's not that complicated, right? So the synopsis of the question is, how do you deliver bad news, right? How do you deliver bad news without turning people off, bumming them out, freaking them out, whatever? This is particularly important if you're a senior level executive and you are, presenting to the board or to shareholders or to your employees. And what you really want to do is focus the audience on the future, the vision you have for what you guys can do to be awesome, not the bad news that they need to know, right? You can't hide. That is a little bit more complicated, but the short answer is you're going to focus on the vision. You're going to do a back and forth between what is and what could be, but you're going to lead with the what could be. So you're going to set them up for, here's what we want, here's what we aspire to be, and I know we can do it. We have to start at this place, though. It's not going to be easy, and there's going to be some challenges. And then up, and then down, and then up, and then down. And again, if you were listening when I said before that 18 minutes is sort of like the limit of any good speech, any good attention span, like what people can actually manage and absorb, you want to try and space out that good, that highlight, that key thing that you want people to remember, that moment of inspiration, pretty evenly between that 18-minute stretch. Cool? All right, so listen, this has been really fun, and I have tons and tons more tips like this to share about how to be insanely great in front of any audience. I would love for you guys to join me tomorrow when I'm back. Again, 3 p.m. Eastern time-ish is sort of when I'm doing this thing. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. There's lots more tips and free stuff you can download, PowerPoint templates, all kinds of goodies for anyone that wants to be amazing and persuasive in front of people when they're presenting. All right, thanks you guys. I'll see you soon.